Hei alle sammen, og velkommen til en annen episode av Oriclopedia. Well, I'm not going to do that in Norwegian. Some people have been saying that my English pronunciation was approximate, which is totally true, but I wanted to show you that I could also be extremely approximate in Norwegian with my strong French accent. So, new episode this week. We are going to talk about storage devices. There's been a number of people being confused and asking more details about Erebus, Cumulus, Cumana, Microdisc on tapes. So we're going to talk about that today. But first I'm going to show you what I received last week. So if you watch the previous episode about Soracom, there were advertisements about Canada. So I received the game, Oric Canada by Nicolas Menou. It's an unusual size of box, especially considering it's just a standard tape in it with nothing special. And then I got my first present from a viewer. So thanks to Laurent Retroric, I got this nicely packed in original Oric box. And this is the official, at least for the French market. I had no idea if it was in all country. The official Oric tape drive. Slimline computer data recorder, model C682. As you can see, it's a standard computer frame data recorder with all the usual functions. And an Oric logo, which, I've been sticked on it. This particular model is available on multiple brands. But the cool thing is that it has a monitor, so you can actually hear what's happening while you are loading, which is very practical. It has a reset counter. So, all very practical. And has it happened? Well, this is the first device we are going to talk about. This is what I call the baseline. 99% of all Oric software was released on tape. So, like Canada. And there are very few programs actually released on floppy. So, if you want the true Oric experience, it's a tape drive you need. The main problem is that tape drives are quite slow, very unreliable in terms of Oric loading, but not unreliable in the normal way. If you found the right volume and the right azimuth, which is the small tweaking of the position of the drive head, it will most probably load this game again and again without any problem. The problem is you take another game from another publisher which has been saved and written to tape with a different machine, with a different volume, the source tape itself being written from another Oric, and it's not going to load anymore, but then you change the volume on the azimuth and it's probably going to work again and again, but the previous program will not work anymore. So it was relatively common to have a Oric owner having more than one tape drive. Then you have the Microdisc. So the Microdisc was like the drum devices announced for I don't know how many months before they were actually released. Pretty, very nice, goes very nicely with your Oric computer, feels like a perfect complement, but 3-inch floppies, they are very hard to find. The actual software you find on disk are things that have been done after the commercial life of the Oric, like all the recent games from Schema, from Twilight, the demos I made, the Club Oric floppies, or even before that you had the Theoric floppies, but there were back in the days no classic software on floppies. There are a few on JASMIN, but nothing on Microdisc. Then you had the Cumana. Cumana, which basically is a clone of the Microdisc. It does not look the same. It was much cheaper. The box itself is much more bulky. it was much more reliable than the Microdisc, way less twitchy. The Microdisc will refuse to boot on some machine just because you sneezed. The Cumana had a good power brick, good electronics, it just worked. I think it's just a reworked Microdisc basically inside. Then you get the JASMIN. The problem with the JASMIN is that it's not compatible with the Microdisc at all. Microdisc and Cumana, basically, they are using the same component inside, same disk controller, and you can run Oric, Oric DOS, they all run fine on it. You can write something on the Cumana, it will load on the Microdisc and vice versa. The JASMIN came with its own operating system, the FTDOS, which is quite good. JASMIN could have been a perfectly good system if it was the only one available. The problem is that if your friend is using a JASMIN and you're using a Microdisc or Cumana, you can't exchange software directly. You can't put a floppy. Since both these controllers are able to load the data at the hardware level, it was possible to adapt. So you could use some software that read tracks, knows about the operating system, but it's a hassle. So sometimes on oric.org you will try to download some DSK file, and they will not work. It's because they were probably made for JASMIN. So if you have a JASMIN drive, you can find a lot of actually native software, because when they released it, they made sure that they would have a painting program, some administrative program, like address notebook, things like that. So they're actually more native, real software for JASMIN than they ever were for Microdisc. That's not the case anymore, but it used to be. Then we have the modern updates, which basically started with this thing, the HXC, and which is basically a floppy emulator. So the important thing is that this is not the equivalent of that. This is the equivalent of this 3.5 inch floppy drive, or this big bulky 3-inch drive that you find inside this box there. Because inside this thing, on top of the drive, there is a controller board. And the controller board is a thing that interfaces with the Oric, which knows how to read the content of the floppy. So you can't just put an HXE on the Oric and have it work, which means you need to have an actual controller board. And the controller boards are the actual hard to find parts. So some people have been rebuilding some controller boards, a clone of Cumana, clone of Microdisc, even some clone of JASMIN, I think. And if you have one and you plug that on it, then it's going to work. So the HXC, what it does is basically it pretends to be a floppy drive. There are jumpers you can use. This is pin compatible with the back of the drive. You can use that to say I'm drive 0, 1, AB. There are some parameters you can put on the config file on the SD card, which allows you to say, well, I'm actually compatible with a specific Shugart model, and the stepping speed is this amount. So with that you can pretend to be 525 inch for a very specific old computer or something more modern. So it's very flexible. This one is a Ref C. There are many more models with different form factor. That one, I had it for many years. Very reliable, but totally not practical on the Oric because, yeah, form factor is not great. Which comes with the Gotek. So, as you can see, the Gotek is a drop-in replacement, and since then there have been some new models of the HXC which have similar form factor as that one, so they are equivalent. That one is more professionally built. It already comes generally all finished with all the buttons on screen and ready to use. The Gotek is more like what you get. There are multiple versions, but generally what you get is just a ridiculous 7-digit screen, and then you need to do click, not knowing. You just see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to select your floppy drive. But there are many modes available, so I installed the mod to get an actual OLED screen, so you can actually see what you have. I installed the small mode that does a beep 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 when you're changing track, something like that, because by default it's silent. The HXC is using SD card. I believe recent models are also using USB stick. The Gotek is using USB stick. It's actually more practical to have a USB stick. If all you are doing is to make a collection of games and then just play them, you can put everything on the SD card and it's fine. If you are a software developer and you need to copy data between the Oric, the PC, the Oric, the PC, the USB stick is much more practical. Plug, 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 plug. Which brings the problem of the file format. On the Oric, the file format we use for emulator tape file is TAP, TAP. And what we use for emulated floppies is a DSK. All the emulator load and write natively TAP on DSK format. The problem is that both the Gotek and the HXC are using the HFE format, which is much more evolutive, does much more things, it's compatible with pretty much everything in the universe. But it does not natively support the DSK, so you need to go through a tool which converts your DSK to an HFE, and then you write it there. And the problem is that it does not seem, at least when I try, I could not find it. It does not seem to have a HFE to DSK conversion. That may happen at some time. The last time I tried, it did not work, which means that if you are doing things on the real Oric and you save to your Gotek, yeah, it's on the HFE file and you can't get it out, which is kind of stupid. That being said, there are some firmware updates which have been made for this device. I've been told that native DSK file format, which will remove all the conversion, is on the way. Cross fingers. So, HXC Gotek, it works. If you already have a disk controller, it may be the thing you need. But then we got Cumulus. So Cumulus is an interesting device, so it's all open source hardware and software. It also uses SD card, but this thing basically is the exact equivalent of that. It contains basically the disk board controller inside, and the equivalent of the Gotek. So it's an all-in-one thing. You put the cable, connect to the Oric, put your SD card, switch on. No external power supply. You just use the internal power of the Oric. It's very nifty. Then you have a small color screen, like on a mobile phone. You can select devices, select the DSK file, load it, it works. No need for conversion like HFE. It's very nice. That one is one of the old models made by Metadata. The main problem, there are two main problems with Cumulus. The first is the parts are hard to find. The small LCD screen is actually a Nokia mobile phone from before touchscreen. They are hard to find, so it's not guaranteed that if it fails that can be repaired or that new model can be easily produced. The main problem is it is very nitpicky about which hardware it's going to work with. If it works with your machine, no problem, it works fine. But if your machine has been modified with, like for example, it had failure on ROM chip had been replaced, it may not work. If you have a model with a specific type of EPROM instead of ROM, it may not work. If it was a two model ROM, it may not work. So it may not. If it works, it's great. Another problem is this is not actually a very accurate floppy emulator. These things on the Gotek, they actually emulate to the, let's say, cycle, the behavior of this drive, how long it takes to access a sector, how long it takes to move from one track to another. It tries to behave like the physical device. So it does tick, 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 tick. This thing does not care. It loads the DSK file in memory, more or less, and it just loads things as fast as the Oric can, which is great as a developer because, yeah, everything loads much faster than on HXE on Gotek. The problem is that if you're making games that you at some point hope will work on the real machine, it'll give you a fake feeling of efficiency. And when you test on the real machine, oh my god, it's so slow. Slow compared to a tape, it's still fast. Because there's been some question about the device I'm talking about later, which is, are you sure it's working fine? I had a Cumulus and the debugs demo is having some weird sound when loading. Well, yeah, it's actually the Cumulus which is not correct, it's just that it loads so fast and the music does not sound distorted. If it had been on a real Microdisc, it would have been even worse. So no, the device was performing as expected. Which brings the Erebus. So Erebus is the tape equivalent of Cumulus. It also has a SD card, the micro SD actually, connector, a reset button. You put all your tab file on that. Then they appear on the Oric. You select them with a keyboard, and it loads. It's nifty, it's not perfect, far from it. Basically, it only works with non-protected programs, like programs that loads using standard methods, like cload, load in memory, fine. If they are doing funky things like moving things around, it will not work. Basically, this thing is using the same method as Microdisc, which is, it comes with its own method to take over the ROM. It does what emulators do, which is it has its own Oric ROM inside, which has been modified to be able to access data from the SD card instead of from the tape extension. First, what that means is that if you put that on an Oric one, what you get is an Oric Atmos, because the internal ROM is disabled. So that's going to be surprising. If you put Oric 1 game on this thing, they will never ever load. The other thing is that if you use Erebus, you can't load from the actual Oric tape anymore. So you can't use Erebus for doing things like archiving. You can't load from a normal tape on save to SD card, which would have been nice. But if all you want to do is to show Oric game or play Oric game and you don't care about seeing intros, loading screens, and all these things, all you want to see is to load the game fast and reliably, just get a collection of Atmos games. I guess some people are going to make some validated to run on Erebus thing, and that's a good choice. It's compact, does not need an external power supply, it works well. We'll bring the last device, which is the Cumana Reborn. So, I don't have one, but Cumana Reborn is actually quite smart. It's the equivalent of Cumulus, functionally speaking, and that together. So basically what he did is that he made a new version, reverse engineered the controller board of the Cumana, which is the cleanest of all. And because the schematics of the Gotek HXE are available, he integrated the Gotek natively on his Cumana design. So you get a Gotek that you can actually plug directly on your Oric. But because it's based on a real Cumana drive, you don't have the access time error problem of the Cumulus, so it just works. And because it's based on the Cumana, it means you can also plug real disk drive. So it's actually the equivalent of this monstrosity. which has an actual real floppy drive, and a Gotek, and some buttons behind to switch between which one is a boot drive or not. And since it's open, I can show you what I meant by controller board. This is this thing. This is the controller board. So Cumana Reborn is that plus this in one device, which is nice. Well, I guess now all I need to do is to show you how things work. So let's see how to use the Erebus device. So it's relatively easy. First you make sure that the machine is off. Then you plug that on the expansion port. Then you switch on the computer. And normally you see the ready message. So at this point, normally you tap CL load. And I'm sorry for the noise outside, it's been snowing, so we have the snowing machine. And instead of having the searching on the tape, what you get is an actual menu that you can control with the keyboard. So just because that one is very fast to check. You can see there's no particular problem. And if you want to play another game, you press the button, load, let's say Probe 3, which is a much bigger game, so that one takes longer to load. But not that much longer. Normal game with sound. But as an example of game that does not load, Defense Force. As you can see, there is an intro picture and searching, and it goes nowhere because it's a multi-part game which has not been adapted to load correctly. And then we have the Cumulus, which also comes with its own cable and the small board on the back called the Cumulus. Without that, the device will not work because the Oric is not powerful enough. So let's plug it. Small screen and select, say, the Barbitoric. And then it appears on the screen, Barbitoric DSK. Then press the center button to reset Oric. Yes. And here's the number 18, 19, 20 changes when things are loading. To finish, I can try to show the actual real microdisc. So as you can see, we are on insert system disk. This is Oric DOS 3.0. So not much to do. I mean, it's a DOS. Can load things. Not sure. Yes. So where I'm at it, so some people ask why most of these games are released on floppy, if it's so problematic, instead of tape. The thing is, yes, on the floppy you get all the fancy ability to load a lot of files and things like that, but you also had 16 more kilobytes available. Here it's written Oric Atmos 48K, but there is actually 64K of RAM in the machine. And when the disk controller is connected, you have all the necessary electronic to access this 16 kilobyte. Originally, it was made to allow the operating system to load itself. So you could switch between operating system, ROM basic, operating system, ROM basic. Well, that's also why you have the basic starting at address 500 instead of 400. It's because the operating system needs to have a bit of memory available at all time to allow the swap between the operating system command and the basic commands. So when you're doing your own games or your own demos, like this demo, the LCP intro, it's only one small file, it's 37 kilobytes. It does not use any of the storage of that. But because it's loaded from disk, the first thing I do is to basically disable the operating system, and I take the top 16 kilobytes for me. So instead of being a demo that uses 48K, I can use the full 64K. And recently we released something called a floppy builder, which has been used for the Oric slideshow. What it allows us is to make a custom loading system, which only use like 1 kilobyte, so you get the 15 kilobyte free for you to load data and do things. Which is why we've been able to get games like Blex 7 and things like that, that would have been impossible to do on a normal tape. So right now this demo has been loaded from there, but I have a switch behind, and I can reset. And now I'm loading things from the USB stick. I'm not sure if you can see. So every time the number changes there, it's because there is a disk access. And it's not actually loading anything from the real floppy. It just happened that this drive are sharing the motor on signal. That's why it starts doing noise each time. So the same demo loaded from Cumulus, the audio cut will be much shorter.